Hello everybody, this is R from DJR Union, and today I'm coming back at you again with another deck profile. But unlike before where we did decks that's more tailored towards the meta, this time we're going to take a step back to provide y'all a much more casual deck that's easier on the pockets. That's right folks, I'm talking about the Cornelia deck.
Now before we continue on with the video, I just want to point out this nice little website called EXBurst. For those of you who don't know, EXBurst is a website where you're able to view additional content of your favorite TCG card game, in our case Univia. It has a lot of features that include viewing the content hub, where you're able to view videos of your favorite YouTubers, the public deck list, where you're able to view many decks created by people across the world, as well as my personal favorite, the deck builder, where you're able to pick your favorite IP that's currently out and build a completely customized deck with all the cards in the set for the world to view. So without further ado, let's continue on with the video, shall we?
So starting us off, we're going to be playing our 4 Cornelias. As you know, the name of the deck is called Cornelia, so what wouldn't be Cornelia without playing your 4-0 drops? As always, this is the main starter of your deck, so you want to see these bad girls as much as possible. Pretty straightforward, you're going to be running 4 of these bad girls. Next on the list, we're going to be playing our 4 0-cost Jeremiahs. Now, unlike the Lancelot deck where we want to work towards more of the late game, with this deck we want to be as aggressive as possible and do as much damage as possible in the early game. Hence why we play 4 of these Jeremiahs, so that way we can play them on the front line, getting that easy bit of damage and bringing it on back for our later plays. Also, Jeremiah is a pure blood faction, which is also going to be needed for all of our later cards that we're going to be able to raid into. Ending off our 0-cost, we are playing 4 of the Kewels. Now, the reason we're playing this card is because 1, it has Nullify Impact, which is going to help against a lot more of the other decks that like to play a lot of raid characters with Impact, but also it's another pure blood faction affinity card, so that way we can raid into it with our later cards. So thus we're going to be playing 4 of these bad boys as well. Going into our 1-drops, we're playing 2 Unit Maintenance. You heard me say it more than once, Unit Maintenance is an excellent card for being able to dig into your deck and finding the cards you need to extend your plays. And this card works really well with this deck because the whole point of the deck is to be able to swing in as fast as possible. And we're going to be able to need to get to our raids as quickly as possible so we can start raiding them as early as turn 3. So this card works really well in getting that card so that way we can raid and start applying that early game pressure. Following that, we are playing 2 of the V2s. You know it, you love it, you play the card, you bounce another card back, you got that 2 energy, you see it in almost every deck you play, so thus you play 2 of these bad boys. Next, we're playing Andreas, specifically 2 of them. This is just another good body to have on the field. When you have more characters on your front line with this bad boy, he gets an extra 500 BP for each one, so he's able to buff himself up to 3k BP to start swinging for that early game damage. You already know the game of the deck. We want to flood the front line with as much characters as possible so we can swing in with as much damage as possible to run over our opponent and get that damage in as quickly as possible. Going into our 2-drops, we're playing 2 of the Gilberts. Now, same thing as Andreas, we play him on the front line with our other characters just to be able to provide that extra bit of BP to swing over our opponent during the early game. And also, he's a Royal Guard affinity just like Andreas, which is also going to be needed for going into our later raids to again apply that early game pressure. Now moving into our 3-cost, we are playing 4 of the 3-cost Cornelias. Now, this is one of the main key pieces of the deck, mainly because of the fact that once you play her, you're able to take a 2 energy or less card from your hand with 1 AP and place it onto the field resting. This is very good, especially with cards like, say, Andreas and cards like Gilbert, which you want to flood your front line with as many characters as possible, so that way you can capitalize on their effects, which pretty much birds of a feather flock together, make them strong enough to be able to swing over your opponent as quickly as possible. And because you want to be effective at doing that, we want to play 4 of the 3-cost Cornelias. Moving into our next card, we're playing 4 Lives. Nothing needs to be said about this card. You run 4 of these bad boys and the story, no description down below needed. Following that, we are playing 4 of the military buildups. Now, this is not a Lancelot deck. We don't play Suzaku, we don't play Lancelot, so there is no reason to play Varus when we can't really capitalize off it. As such, we need to play military backup instead, because what this card allows us to do is that for every card we have on the front line, we can kill an opponent with 1k BP in a corner. So we can kill an opponent with as low as 1k BP or kill an opponent with as much as 4k BP. It just really depends on how many characters we have on the front line, which what does this deck does best? Flooding characters onto your front line. So as such, we play 4 of these bad boys. Also, it's your special, so you have to play 4. Next, we have Valletta, and we're specifically running 2 of these bad girls. Now, she does nothing special, she's just here to generate 2 energy and it's a 3k beater, but also because of her affinity, which again is the Pure Blood faction, which we're going to need to be able to raid into our other character cards. And of course we have our boy, Jeremiah, and we're going to be playing 2 of these bad boys. Now, of course, we play him because he generates 2 energy, plus he has 3k BP, but we also play him because of his step maneuverability as well as having double block. As you already can tell, we don't really play a lot of character cards with a lot of neat little tricks and fancy maneuvers, so we gotta take what we can get with this deck, and Jeremiah is just that, a nice and good simple body so we can be aggressive on the front line or generate energy on the back line. Now we get to go into our raids, and starting it off, we have the 3 cost Sutherland. Now, the main reason we're playing 4 of these bad boys is because we're playing 4 of these bad boys. These are one of your better raid cards, mainly because of the fact that once raided, it has double block and it gets 1k BP to turn yourself into a 4k beater with double blocks. As you know, we don't have a lot of tricks to play into this deck, so thus all we can do is just play cards on the front line and start swinging with everything like we got. So having double block to be defensive as well as 4k BP to be an offensive, you know, that's what we do and that's what we take. Next on our raid list, we're playing some Royal Guard of Fighters. I'm not going to pronounce that other game because I know I'm going to butcher it. But yeah, the reason we play 2 of these bad boys because, I mean, me personally, I don't see it as good as the Pure Blood faction fighter, mainly because of the fact that it only comes out at a 2500 beater, but it does get 500 BP for every other character you have on the front line, which of course is the purpose of the deck, is friend the front line. But still, that's all dependent on the state of the game. Of course, your opponent's going to be interacting with us, so we need to pick and choose depending on the playing field. And this is one of those cards whose BP can always change during the course of the battle. So we only play 2 of these bad boys, but once it does get 4k BP, it gets impact. So it's a nice little card to get a little bit of impact to try to swing in and get that extra bit of damage. Now finishing up our 3 costs, we have 2 of the All Hail Britannia. Now, I said it plenty of times in this video, we don't have a lot of tricks in this deck to be able to outmaneuver our opponent. We're kind of just going in head first into the situation. So All Hail Britannia is very good in this case because what it allows us to do is just buff our front line with that extra BP, as well as giving one of our characters impact to go in and swing that extra bit of damage. Like I mentioned before, the point of this deck is to flood the front line and start swinging in as early as possible. And once your opponent already established itself and now you're in the ringer, you play All Hail Britannia, give that last character that bit of BP and impact, and just swing in for game. Now, we get into my personal favorite of the deck, the lady of the hour, always sweet and never sour. We have the 4-cost Cornelia Fighter. I really do enjoy playing this card and raiding it in this deck because, as you already know, I love digging. And what does this card do when it's played when raided? It digs. I'm able to dig 5 cards deep into my deck, find any card with 2 energy or less and 1 AP, and play it directly on my field resting. Another good way to be able to flood your board while also getting a decent 4k beater onto the field at the same time. So I definitely am running 4 of these Cornelias, and plus the name of the deck is Cornelia, so why wouldn't you run it? She is definitely the lady of the hour and definitely too sweet to be sour. And just because it'll be a little disrespectful if we don't include him, we're playing 2 Siegfrieds. Because, of course, we play Jeremiah, it's only natural we play Siegfried. Your nice little 5-cost raid character that's 4k BP, but once it's raided, not only does it have steps, I can move it on the front line or the back line, but I can also grab any character card from my sideline that's not Siegfried himself and add it back to my hand. So it's a pretty decent way to be able to recycle your cards and to be able to keep reusing them for later plays if the game starts getting to drag out. But that's all this card is really for. It's just for that what if scenario, the game's getting dragged out, I need to get this raid back, so let me play Siegfried to grab it. But if you're not really too interested in playing the Siegfried, you know what I recommend replacing them with? 2 more unit maintenance. So thus you're rating 4 unit maintenance, so you're much more likelihood to grab a unit maintenance, to grab the card you need, to replay that AP or restand that AP and start being more aggressive with your plays. Because what's the point of the deck? Flood the front line and start being as aggressive as possible. And there you have it. Not only do you have a deck that's pretty fast and fun to play, but it's also easy on the pockets. Now, I hope you guys have as much fun with this deck as I have, and if tailored to the right person, can even compete with the more prominent decks. But I'll leave that for you guys to decide. Once again, this is R from DJR Unit, and I hope y'all have a fantastic day, man.